It was a transfer window unlike any other. It shocked the watching world, and it seemed financially impossible. But this is the story of how Chelsea took advantage of loopholes, spent £290 million, and broke the transfer market in January 2023. In the space of just a few hours on the final day of the transfer window, Chelsea spent a Premier League record transfer fee, sanctioned the sale of their vice-captain, and managed to drive one of Europe's biggest clubs to distraction to such an extent that they labelled Stamford Bridge a Class A circus. So the transfer record first. Of course, it was Enzo Fernandez. On January the 3rd, fellow co-owners Todd Boehly and Jose E. Feliciano had boarded a plane along with Bedad Ekbali, a co-founder of Clearlake Capital, to London. They met Benfica president Rui Costa and Fernandez's agent, Jorge Mendes, for dinner at the Bulgari Hotel in Knightsbridge to discuss the purchase of the player, during which Benfica made it clear that they wanted the £106.7 million release clause paid in full. Now at that time, Chelsea had no intention of meeting that valuation. One factor that would change their mind, however, was learning of two clubs ready to spend £100 million on Fernandez in the summer, by which time the Londoners might not be able to offer Champions League football. It was now or never, they felt. Chelsea would pay in 6 instalments rather than one lump sum, with a first down payment of £30 million and a deal completed just after midnight on deadline day. The delegation in Cobham were ecstatic, although not everyone shared their joy. On the same day, Hakim Ziyech travelled to Paris to secure a loan to PSG. The 29-year-old was in PSG's offices waiting for positive news. By evening, there had been nothing from Chelsea for a while, and Ziyech's agent became increasingly agitated. Ziyech took to messaging Boehly directly, pleading with the co-owner to speed the process along. At 9:40 p.m, having been given the go-ahead to conclude a loan until June, PSG sent Chelsea a markup of their agreement. The document needed to be signed and returned to be lodged with the Liga Football Professional. Instead, nothing happened. According to a PSG source, a succession of unsuccessful attempts were made to contact Chelsea by telephone, with the deadline minutes away. Just before 11 p.m, an email was received, but the attachment was not the correct document. It was also unsigned. PSG resent the loan agreement, signed by the club and by Ziyech, and once again received an erroneous document by return, again unsigned. The right form was sent at the third attempt at 11:03 p.m, and the contract was downloaded on the French league system a minute later. But the deadline had been missed. The source described Chelsea as a Class A circus. Chelsea contest that sequence of events. They were also mystified by suggestions that no one had responded to a phone call. Regardless, Ziyech was left stranded in Paris, looking for somewhere to stay. Now, incoming signings have obviously been more successful. When, for instance, it was decided that Chelsea would go all out to hijack Arsenal's move for Mikhailo Mudryk, club representatives flew to Turkey and persuaded both the winger and the Shakhtar Donetsk hierarchy over 8 to 10 hours of presentations and talks to deal with them instead. Fernandez and Mudryk headline an exciting and youthful list of acquisitions that include defender Benoit Badiashile, winger Noni Madueke, midfielder Andre Santos, and forward David Detro Fofana. Fullback Malo Gusto has also been signed and loaned back to Lyon until the summer. And all of these players fit a certain profile. Unlike the summer of 2022, Chelsea were determined that their signings in January would all fit their broader vision to build a squad of young, hungry footballers of elite talent. The bigger question, though, is how Chelsea were able to make this unprecedented level of transfer spending work within UEFA's financial fair play regulations. And the answer is complicated and based around player amortization and contract lengths. So by signing Enzo Fernandez to a deal that runs until June 2031, for example, Chelsea have enabled his £106.7 million transfer fee to be spread across 8.5 years on the books, rather than a more conventional 4 or 5, thereby greatly reducing his yearly cost on the accounts. Mudryk, Badiashile, Madueke, Gusto and summer signing Wesley Fofana are all on similarly long deals. This amortization trick, which could end up backfiring if the players on those supersized contracts fall short of expectations on the pitch, is one of the conditions Bowley and Clearlake have exploited to carry out the level of spending that most elite clubs would have to stretch across 3 or 4 summer windows. Another comes from the other half of how football clubs report transfers in their accounts. Transfer fees for purchased players might be amortised over the length of their contracts, but transfer fees for players sold are booked immediately, minus their remaining amortised cost on the books. These differing accounting practices can make it surprisingly easy for clubs to significantly offset or even completely balance signings. Now, UEFA have already moved to close the amortisation loophole for future transfer windows. Even if a player is signed on a 7 or 8 year contract from the summer onwards, their transfer fee will be spread over no more than 5 years in any FFP calculation. So, even clubs who can afford to copy Chelsea's approach in January 2023 won't be able to. And it's been a more targeted strategy than assumed. The club have signed players aged 23 or under who can either blossom into key components or grow their resale value. Even if those winter signings fail to impress at Stamford Bridge, the majority are on considerably lower salaries than many of their teammates acquired under Abramovich. Modric, for example, earns a basic wage of £97,000 per week. Their contracts also contain provisions that reduce wages if the club does not qualify for the Champions League. The thinking being that these shifts in policy will make underperformers far easier to sell. Now, no one should expect this level of transfer spending to continue indefinitely, of course, but the scale of Bowley and Clearlake's ambition for Chelsea is remarkable, as has been the money they've put behind this lightning-fast transition towards a new era. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.